How can you show compassion to yourself? Let's start with the first component of self-compassion, which is self-kindness. So one way that we can practice self-kindness is through the ways that we communicate with ourselves, the ways that we talk to ourselves. I know that for me, this was often a big struggle of mine. I used to beat myself up a lot, and I still do occasionally. It's still something that I have to be mindful of and catch myself and reconfigure, reinterpret the ways that I talk to myself. But growing up and for a lot of my life, if something went wrong, the first place my mind would go would be to call myself stupid. So I am very intellectually centered. I like to think, I like to learn, I like to teach. And so because of all of that, if anything went wrong in my life, whether it was in a relationship or whether I actually made a mistake at work or in school or something like that, I took on the blame towards myself. I would call myself stupid. I would be like, Mallory, you're so stupid. Why didn't you think of that? Like, why didn't you prevent that mistake from happening? How could you do this? This was so dumb. This was so stupid. I would talk to myself in a way that I would never talk to somebody else. Like, I would never speak to a close friend or family member or a loved one in the way that I talked to myself. And a lot of us do that, right? A lot of us will speak to ourselves so much more harshly than we would ever speak to anybody else. That's messed up, so messed up. So the self-kindness component is really about starting to reframe and rewire the way that we talk to ourselves. So one exercise that you could do is to write a letter to yourself as a small child. Right? We're often a lot gentler and kinder with children than we are with ourselves or than we are with adults sometimes. And so think about yourself as a small child, maybe 5 years old or 7 years old or 10 years old. And whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're experiencing that is hard or painful right now, you could either write it out in a journal. I love the practice of actually using pen and paper to write stuff like this. But if you prefer to type, or if you just want to talk it out to yourself, you could do that too. I, as a writer, as a teacher, I sometimes love to use the voice recording app on my phone to do it that way. There's some great tools that will transcribe voice recordings to text if you want to document that for later. But however you choose to do it, write or record a letter to yourself as a small child. What do you wish that you could tell that younger version of yourself? And how would you speak to that younger version of yourself? Thinking of this younger version of you can help you to reframe and shift the ways that you talk to yourself now. You could also think of yourself as a friend of yours. Right? If maybe for some reason thinking of yourself as a small child doesn't work for you, maybe you could create an alter ego version of yourself that is a close friend or someone that you love and care about. And when you find yourself starting to use some of that negative self-talk and speaking very harshly to yourself, try to practice mindfulness and catch yourself and talk to yourself how you would to that close friend. So, hey Mallory, you're not stupid. You are experiencing something that was really hard, really painful for anybody. And you responded to it and cried, and that's okay. A lot of people would cry in that situation. So there's an example of how you might reframe and shift and kind of step back from yourself and talk to yourself in the way that you would talk to somebody else, instead of how you might be talking to yourself in a more harsh or negative way right now. Another way to practice self-kindness is to create rituals of kindness for yourself. So I mentioned earlier, one of the rituals that I started creating for myself when I was going through this period of healing and post-breakup, post my whole life sort of getting upended, is I would start going for walks. And walking is really incredible. There's a lot of science and data to back this up. I like to go for runs too, but walks are great in a different way. Especially if you have access to nature or the outdoors. getting vitamin D from sunlight, getting some fresh air, especially if you can be around trees or plants or something like that. There are so many health benefits, both physical and mental, from that. But I created these rituals of going for a walk. I would sometimes listen to an audiobook or something like that, sometimes listen to music, sometimes a walking meditation download, and sometimes just nothing. Sometimes I just needed to be with just myself and just my thoughts to process things. But be sure to use the kind talk if you're gonna process things and get inside of your head. Some other rituals that I started to practice for myself is doing more yoga regularly. I, for many, many years, resisted yoga until around this time that I started going through this breakup and shift in my life. I originally started practicing yoga for the physical benefits. I was sitting a lot in my desk chair at my computer, working all the time. And so my back was feeling like, crunchy and didn't feel very good. So I started doing yoga at home. Even now, most of my yoga practice has been just at home with a yoga mat with different free services. Things like Yoga with Adriene is a really great YouTube channel, totally free to watch. You just gotta watch the YouTube ads or whatever. But Yoga with Adriene is one of my favorite free resources for yoga if you don't already have a yoga practice or stretching practice even. And then baths. Again, I was also like, I don't really see the point in baths. Like, I take my shower, like that's all I need. But I've gotten into the habit of taking baths more occasionally, using Epsom salts and essential oils and things like that to kind of create a ritual of relaxation and self-kindness, self-care. Being in that warm water with the Epsom salts, with the scents. I'll often turn the lights off in the bathroom and light a candle instead, and then put on some like meditation, relaxation music on Spotify on my phone, and just be there, just relax and chill out in kind of the dimly lit darkness, which is the candle going. And that is a ritual that I've created for myself to be kind and gentle to myself, to practice what I preach. Another act of self-kindness that Dr. Neff talks about in her book and that I've learned to practice for myself is self-touch. And I'm not talking about the we all know what kind of self-touch, but that's fine too. That has a totally other great purpose. But I mean self-touch like hugging yourself or, massaging your hand or your wrist, for example, those kind of self-touch practices. So there's a famous study, and Dr. Neff talks about this in her book. You maybe have heard about this study where they tested on baby monkeys. So they had a baby monkey who was around its mom and could be touched by its mommy monkey. And then they had a baby monkey who they gave a metal mommy to, like a fake, not real, not even soft. And that monkey did not do well. Like, human beings and animals too, this is why they did the experiment on monkeys, but we need physical touch. Like, we're wired to need touch. And in certain situations, like when I was going through living on my own, working from home, being more isolated and on my own, I didn't have access to my ex-partner anymore, right? I didn't have somebody that I could snuggle in bed with or, cuddle on the couch with. And so I had to learn to be that resource for myself more often. And here we are now, as I'm recording this, April 2020, in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. And because of this situation, a lot of us, I still live on my own. A lot of us don't have access, and who knows how long it will be until we have access to really be able to physically touch other people again, to be able to hug and get those things that we need. So there are ways that we can practice that for ourselves, with ourselves. Again, whether it's just, giving yourself a hug when you're feeling down, that can really release some of that energy, some of those hormones, endorphins, I'm not sure exactly of the right term, but it can help. Even if it's, like massaging your own neck or something like that is a thing. Also, I'm not ashamed to say, I am a 30-something-year-old woman with a stuffed animal. So this is my little Mochi Kuma. I sleep with this stuffed bear. I'm not even gonna lie. Because it's soft and it's like very huggable and squeezable. So if you have a stuffed animal, you know, if that brings you comfort, do it. But those are ways that we can be kind to ourselves and show ourselves self-kindness.